Hi, my name's Caden, also known as Rect. I am the developer for Flawless Cowboy, which is a reimagining and remake of Halo Combat Evolved within Fortnite's UEFN system. I am a solo developer working on the project. There's no team or anything. As far as that goes, I have people helping me out with voice acting roles, and I have a friend who made the Master Chief knockoff model, known as Master Jones. I know I don't really make videos anymore, but essentially what I wanted to do here is kind of provide my thoughts and kind of put it out there and my mentality behind remaking Halo Combat Evolved for the two people that want to listen to that. So just like put this on in the background while you do something. The video itself isn't going to be too interesting. So my objective with Flawless Cowboy is to create a very authentic remake of Halo Combat Evolved while maintaining the spirit of Fortnite. And I'm learning that there's a lot more to it than just, I like this game and I want to put it in this game now. There's a lot more complications to it that I'll get into soon. So before I get into anything too deep, the name Flawless Cowboy comes from Halo itself. It was the initial subtitle of the game, I guess. There's this one, rough draft of the Halo 1 cover art that's out there somewhere, and beneath the title Halo it says Flawless Cowboy Action, and I happened to make it into the game on the second level's first chapter title, which would appear in the bottom right of the screen, and also apparently appeared in some gamer manual from 2001. I don't know. That's why it's called Flawless Cowboy. But yeah, what I want to start talking about first, I have all this is completely off the cuff, obviously. I just have some notes on what I want to talk about. So the first thing is, it is difficult to remake just a single level than you think it is, especially by yourself. I mean, I am not too familiar with Unreal Engine and game tools as a whole. I'm still learning them as I go, and that's kind of the point that I'm doing this. I want to learn more about game development, and starting out with the first level, boarding action, it was really difficult to get the whole layout there and figure out in what order things go in. I've learned since that I should have been focusing on gameplay first, but instead I was worried more about the visual aspect. I was worried about how the cryo room looked when I first started out, and then I moved on to the actual gameplay of it, and then I started working on sound effects and such. And then I realized halfway through, wait, I'm not doing this right. It's taking too long, and it's not really making much progress. So I kind of restarted how I was looking at things, and even then, it took me about 5 months to complete the original level. I think I started it in February, and then I completed it in June. And there's a lot of different iterations that were going on during that whole period. The main issue with remaking a game in a completely different game is the gameplay doesn't adapt perfectly. You can't just throw Halo into Fortnite and expect it to work, and you can't just throw the levels into Fortnite and expect them to work. Take Halo as an example. In Halo 2 there's a multiplayer map, I forgot what it's called, I think it's called Heretic, and they brought that into Halo 5. But they couldn't just bring it one-to-one because Halo 5's gameplay, even though it was in the same franchise, it was completely different. And so they had to really scale up the map and change how the map played overall in order to adapt it to Halo 5. And that's kind of the same thing here, where you can't just get the second level of Halo and adapt it one-to-one and have it play the same, because they're not the same game. The AI works completely different. The gameplay itself is completely different. Fortnite doesn't feature the same golden triangle that it's known as in Halo. For the unaware, golden triangle is shooting, melee, and grenades. You kind of combine all three of those, and they kind of provide this really fun gameplay loop. But half of that, not even half of that, 2/3 of that is missing in Fortnite. And so you have to kind of work around that in order to make something that's still fun. So that involves changing the scale of things, altering layouts ever so slightly, and a lot of moving cover and enemy placement. It is very difficult to really find like a good middle ground on keeping it faithful, but also making it fun in Fortnite. There is an argument to be made too, where if you make it exactly 1-to-1 with the original game, there's no reason to play the remake. Why wouldn't you just go play the original at that point? Or play the official remake that's apparently coming out in like a year, maybe. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. So yeah, I have to kind of consider all that when making this. And on top of that, it's important when fitting it to Fortnite's gameplay that you remove the repetitiveness and less fun aspects of the game itself to fit into the game. And also kind of, I don't want to be like, well, you have to, you know, I don't want to say you have to appeal to the Discover tab, but you do want to, you know, somewhat appeal to Fortnite's audience. You know, if you're doing a firefight and you have 5 different waves, that isn't fun. So condensing it down to 3 waves still keeps the same firefight going, but it isn't as long, so players can move on and get through, because it isn't just a standalone game. It is Fortnite. You know, you're just one single map out of, you know, millions. So you have to keep players playing, you have to keep them interested, and so just repetitiveness is not what you want to do. And meaningless segments, for example, in Halo Combat Evolved second level, which is the current one I'm remaking, after you cross a bridge in this tunnel system, there's this section where it's kind of like these winding corridors. As far as I can tell, that is meant to funnel the player into a small section where the game can deload the area that was right behind you and load in the next one, as well as provide ample time for Cortana to give you the necessary dialogue that she needs to deliver. And so things like that, you kind of have to take that out of the level, because it doesn't provide the player anything of real substance and just kind of prolongs their playtime, which for some creators is what they want, but for me it isn't. I don't find that good. But then there's also parts where I personally don't find something fun, but I'm sure other people do, and that's where a lot of the difficulty comes in. Because in the original Halo level, there's this section where you're saving Marines, multiple different squads, and one of the Marine squads, they're in this like big rocky area. It's just rocks copied and pasted everywhere. It's a really unique area, but me personally, I hate that section. It kind of makes me hate the whole section there where you're saving the Marines. When I'm remaking the game, I don't want to include that, but it isn't because it's in the player's interest, it's because I don't personally find that fun, and that's where I kind of have an issue there. So I try to find a middle ground where it isn't completely removing content. You're still saving 3 groups of Marines, it's not in the rock section, and that one is kind of optional. It's not really required for the game to reach its end state. So now in my Fortnite remake of that same section, when you go out into that little hub area, that's what I'm going to call it, it's like this big open area where you have 3 paths to go. Instead of that 3rd path being to that little rocky section, it's actually just closed off, and there's a crashed piece of the ship debris from the previous mission. That would be the Fortnite version of the Pillar of Autumn, which I'm calling the Structural Winter, because it's a funny name, honestly. Based the, I think, premise for that name. I think he came up with something like that. I think he said Sergeant Winter or something. I don't want to name it after Sergeant Winter, but you know, close enough. So it kind of replaces that section with something new. Much smaller, yes, but even though it's at a smaller scale, it is new. It's something interesting. And me personally, I am a sucker for revisiting older levels and seeing it in a new light. So like a destroyed ship and entering it feels really cool in my opinion, even if it's just like a small portion of it. And as you approach that area, you can see there's a firefight that's ongoing that you're kind of interrupting, where there's a giant group of enemies and a good sized group of Marines all duking it out. And you're just kind of driving by, and you have the option of like, do I want to go help these guys, or do I just want to go and save the other, required groups of Marines? Obviously the player doesn't know that, but they're kind of given that option where they don't need to necessarily save these guys, but if they do go ahead and save these guys, they have a reward for it. One, they can hire one of the guards if the guard doesn't die. The other ones are invincible, but they have the option to hire one of the guards. But on top of that, you can also enter the ship debris, and inside the ship debris is like a little hidden boss. He has a lot of health, it has maximum accuracy, and he has like this gold pulse rifle. And so you kill that guy, and so you're kind of rewarded for helping out these Marines with, you know, this legendary gun and an extra squad mate to help you along to save the other Marines. And so I feel like that way of doing things is as far as removing content should go, because it's removing something that I've always felt like is more of a slog and adding something that adds a bit more variety to the level itself, in my personal opinion. So that's all fun, but it is also very important to keep faithful to the original game, because after all, it is a remake. Once again, it is a balance that you kind of have to strike, at least in my experience. The visuals in Halo Combat Evolved were so out there when the game released. I didn't know. I was born 6 years after the game release. But the visuals are an important aspect of Halo Combat Evolved, and it's what Combat Evolved Anniversary did so wrong, is that it butchered the visuals, it made it completely unfaithful to the original, and not only that, but it created a completely different vibe that the original one didn't have. 343 Guilty Spark, most infamous one, where it was like this dark swamp, and there was like blood everywhere down these elevators and stuff. And then the anniversary graphics, where they remade everything on a graphical level. It was bright, it was very clear, the swamp didn't have any sort of oppressing tones to it. When you went inside the Forerunner structure that the level featured, there was barely any visible blood. There's nothing that the original had. And applying that to Landfall, the level I'm making right now, and applying that to the current level I'm making right now, Landfall, that means I want to keep the same look. The same general look of the original needs to stay the same. I can't change the time of day significantly. I can't change the color palette significantly, but in a very literal sense, the biggest thing to keep is the scale of the Halo ring, the spectacle of it. When you first step out onto Halo, and you kind of see it going all around you, it's right above you. You look up, and that is the Halo ring. You can be standing on that right now. Like, that is terrain. That is part of this planet. And the way the ring curves, it's just, there is something about it. It looks amazing. Now, in Fortnite, I can't really do that. I can't make it a Halo ring for obvious reasons. So I had to get creative. When I was making boarding action, I decided that the Halo ring was going to be the loop. From Fortnite's original story. Actually, most of the characters are from Fortnite's original story. That same idea of the loop being the Halo ring is in the second level, where you're on the loop. And so I wanted to create what I thought would be a similar effect, where you see this giant piece of what you're standing on, like this giant piece of this planet kind of all around you. And so I searched everywhere. I found on, I think it was Sketchfab, some assets I thought it'd be really cool. So you look up and you kind of see that, and if you look out on the horizon, you can kind of see it stretching all around you. And it's probably the closest that I can personally get without making an actual Halo ring. I feel like that'd be really wrong of me to do. Outside of the visuals, the sound is also very important to get right. And thankfully, in Halo Combat Evolved, most of the sounds, as far as I'm aware, are stock sounds that they didn't record themselves. And so that means I can use this stock audio inside my, personal project. And the same thing goes for the music. The music isn't stock audio, obviously, composed by Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore. The Halo Combat Evolved soundtrack it is like some agreement with Microsoft as far as I'm aware, where the tracks from at least the original trilogy, pretty sure they're royalty free, as long as they're used in non-commercial, non-profit projects. So boom, I can use actual Halo music from the game inside of Flawless Cowboy. Now, I wasn't aware of that in boarding action. Would have been pretty useful. But starting out with Landfall, I think it is important to at least include some of that music, and also the soundscape that I mentioned, to really create the atmosphere of Halo. Because without that, you have only half of the experience. You have the visual department where it's like, yes, it looks a lot like Halo, but it's also Fortnite. And you have the audio department where you kind of need it to be Halo to really sell it, in my opinion. I don't know when this is going to be released. It might be pre-released, but the project will have Halo music unless it's taken down or something, but as far as I'm aware, it's perfectly fine. So yeah, I'm going to be taking advantage of that. I think it's really cool that I can do that, and I don't think it's really going too far out there, because it's not like I'm taking actual assets from Halo or anything. It's just audio sounds that have been cleared for use in non-commercial, non-profit projects. Another note I have here is I've learned a lot from level 1. I learned a lot about how game development is done, the order I need to take, as I mentioned at the start of this. I got it completely wrong. I figured it out, and I learned a lot more about how the Fortnite creative system, what I was already used to, integrates within this real development tool, and how I can take advantage of these tools and my prior knowledge and really make something cool. And then level 2 came around. I started working on Landfall. I created very basic stuff for it right before I released Boarding Action, and then once Boarding Action was out, I updated quite a few things. And then level 2, obviously I did learn how to do the voice lines and motion tracker. I didn't make those, like that. That's all verse code that I took from online. I think the voice lines were from some YouTube video I found, and those were really helpful. The voice lines themselves are made by me, but the code behind it was taken. I forgot the name of whoever made it. And then the motion tracker was bought from Frozen Pawn. He had this tutorial on how to do it. I don't want to write all that. It was a huge thing of code. After I got all of that sorted, then I backported it to Boarding Action. But learning to at least integrate verse, even if I didn't write the code, because I don't know how to write code, I don't know anything about code in terms of language. I think just doing that, implementing it, definitely learned a lot there. My main goal for Landfall was to learn the terrain tool, because I didn't know how to use it. And I thought, hey, this is a pretty important tool for making environments in UEFN and just Unreal Engine as a whole, as far as I'm aware. So I need to learn how to do this. I need to not find any tutorials for it, just, completely trial and error, figure it out. And I did. And then I looked at tutorials. I didn't do it all by myself, man. I need help. It was not fun to learn. What am I saying? It was interesting to learn, and once I figured everything out, at least for the most part, I think I got a good grasp on it. Definitely more to do with that. I learned how to do the rivers, the little river spines. I was pulling my hair out for about 3 hours maybe, trying to figure that out. One of the rivers does not make sense at all. I think it's in the hub area where you save the Marines. Makes 0 sense. The waterfall goes down in like this little closed off section, and then the river itself, every single aspect of it is completely wrong. Like, it's flowing towards the waterfall where it's supposed to be coming from. My whole excuse of that, it's just, it's like Halo. It's not natural. It's all weird. It's just part of the cool Halo stuff. Yeah, it's not natural and it's alien. Woo! I still have a lot to learn, but learning how to integrate a lot of different level sequences has been pretty interesting. In Boarding Action, pretty late in development, I made a few sequences. They didn't have any attenuation to them, and they weren't attached to any objects. Like, there's this one segment where life pods get shot. I should probably update it. It'll probably be updated by the time Landfall's out. But life pods get shot down, or escape pods. Yeah, that's what they're called, escape pods. They get shot down, one flies out, but the audio was completely centered. It's completely on the player and not attached to anything happening out there. That was like my first extended sequence that I ever made for Flawless Cowboy. And so with level 2, I've learned a lot more about how to really smoothly integrate them with gameplay. Still not perfect, but you know, better luck next time, I guess. I try to polish it as much as I can. But for level 3, when I get around to it, which will be the remake of Truth and Reconciliation, I'm hoping that I can learn how to separate, you know, segments of levels, because I'm pretty sure it's a thing you can do where you can have an entire area not loaded in, and then you hit a trigger, it loads an entire area, deloads the other area. I think that's what the levels system is for in UEFN, maybe, because you have like projects and you have levels inside of those projects. That might be it. If that's a thing you can do, I'll see if I can figure that out. I think it's pretty important for performance because unpacking as much detail as possible while staying in the memory limit. Having all of it loaded in at the same time, it's probably going to take a lot of players' frames. You know, someone playing on mobile, they're not going to be able to play it. Outside of that though, when I finish Landfall, I don't want to immediately go into level 3. I want to create a side project for a couple months. The idea is it'll be a reload-esque mode inspired by Halo 3 ODST. I've always had the dream of, or at least back when Tatanka was, you know, still being rumored, when it was still called Tatanka and not Project Ecker or whatever it is now. For the uninitiated, that was the canceled Halo Battle Royale. I always had the idea of playing a Halo Battle Royale, going in as an ODST and a drop pod and fighting enemies and kind of having more of a Warzone-esque mode, like Halo 5 Warzone, where you have boss battles, you have enemies with guns that you can get from those enemies. Maybe as the area closes in, you can respawn and then you lose your guns, and it'll be like on the New Mombasa streets you have individual sectors, and instead of a circle closing in, you could have a Covenant ship glassing that sector, and anyone that's in the area, as it gets glassed, they die, they lose all their stuff, but they still respawn. I think that'd be really cool. Have it as a reload-esque mode. Same rules as a reload, just kind of Halo-ified. I think it'd be really unique in the current ecosystem, because I mean, I've never seen anyone really make a first-person reload map, especially not a first-person Halo Battle Royale reload map. Very different. But Halo 3 ODST, I definitely want to do something with that. I've always loved ODST's vibe. The New Mombasa streets, they're just something else. But I don't want to recreate Halo 3 ODST. The only game I want to recreate is Halo Combat Evolved. So implementing something from that game I think would be fun, and I could probably learn something from that too. You know, how to make a reload type mode and work more with a multiplayer game mode. I want to take less time making that though compared to Flawless Cowboy. Hopefully it's only like a 2-month project, maybe 3-month. I think that'd be cool to continuously update as I update Flawless Cowboy, because then it opens the door for, you know, making a Flawless Cowboy level and then releasing an update for the ODST themed mode that's themed after that update. So, you know, Truth and Reconciliation, maybe the ODSTs spawn in with their main gun, like the suppressed SMG, and instead of suppressed pistol or whatever, they get a sniper rifle. You know, like, because Truth and Reconciliation has sniper at the beginning. Something like that. That's a very basic idea, but just something like that where you integrate the updates. Also, just so I can have something out there that constantly has players, because obviously, judging by boarding action, creating only single player experiences doesn't really make much. I gotta make this a job, you know. I'd love to get paid enough to pay the bills and not have to work at a fast food place. That'd be great. That'd be wonderful. And speaking of that, but like if anyone somehow from like Team Genesis or something along those lines, any team that's like looking for hire, that want to create cool stuff, not red versus blue slop, I don't want to do any of that, actual cool projects with heart in it, please contact me. My Twitter is in the description. I'd really appreciate that because I want to make enough to pay the bills comfortably and make cool stuff because of it. I want to make, actual games that people can play, look at, see it as a quality product, and enjoy it. But thank you. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Have a good one. See ya.